A jury once heard the exact same car accident case with the exact same evidence presented twice to two different groups. The only difference was one line. In one version, the plaintiff's lawyer asked for $400,000 in damages. In the other, he asked for $20 million. The second jury awarded far more money for the identical accident, the identical injuries, the identical facts. Nothing about the crash had changed, only the number spoken first in the room. That single sentence was enough to move actual verdicts handed down by real jurors who believed they were reasoning independently. Think about your own life for a second. Have you ever seen a house listed at $600,000, negotiated it down to $570, and felt like you'd gotten a deal? The seller may have listed it high on purpose, fully expecting to land right around $570 the entire time. You didn't win anything, you just walked the path they laid out for you. So why does the first number you hear carry more weight than every fact that comes after it? This effect is called anchoring bias. When your brain receives an initial number or statement, particularly under uncertainty, it stops fully evaluating the situation from scratch and instead treats that first input as a starting point, adjusting only slightly away from it, no matter how arbitrary that starting point actually was. Psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky first mapped this out in the 1970s, work that would later contribute to Kahneman winning a Nobel Prize in economics. Their now famous wheel experiment spun a dial secretly rigged to land on either a low or high number, then asked participants an unrelated question: the percentage of United Nations countries located in Africa. Even though the wheel had nothing to do with geography, people who saw high numbers guessed significantly higher. Their brains anchored to noise. Why would your mind operate this way? Because generating a completely independent judgment takes real mental effort, and your brain instinctively searches for a cheaper alternative whenever one is available. Instead of calculating fresh, it grabs whatever number already exists nearby and shifts only slightly from it, which means your final judgment usually lands much closer to that starting anchor than to the actual truth. Researcher Dan Ariely demonstrated just how far this reaches. In one study, participants wrote down the last two digits of their own Social Security number before bidding on items like wine and headphones. People with higher digits placed noticeably higher bids on the identical products, despite that number having absolutely no connection to real value. A random government ID digit had quietly become a price filter. Here's the unsettling part. This isn't limited to average consumers. Research on professional real estate appraisers found that when shown a property's listing price before forming their own valuation, their final expert estimates still drifted toward that number, even while insisting the price hadn't influenced them at all. Expertise doesn't build immunity. Now think about your own week. The first price you see for a used car probably shapes what fair means for every other listing you check afterward. None of these anchors were chosen with care. They simply arrived first, and your brain quietly treated first as true. So what actually breaks this pattern? Not effort alone, and not simply knowing the bias exists, because awareness rarely changes behavior in real time. What consistently works is deliberately forming your own independent judgment before encountering anyone else's number. Estimate the price before checking the tag. Decide your counteroffer before hearing theirs. Research on negotiation outcomes shows that people who commit to their own anchor first land closer to genuinely fair results, because they're comparing two real judgments instead of adjusting from someone else's opening move. That jury never actually evaluated the crash on its own terms. They evaluated the space between the number they were given and the number that felt fair. The next number you encounter before you've had time to think, a price, a diagnosis, an opening offer, pause, and ask what you would have decided if that number had never been spoken at all. If this changed how you'll read the next headline, listing, or offer you come across, say so in the comments, and stay around. Your mind runs on shortcuts like this constantly, most of which are still invisible to you.